So everyone thinks they know what capitalism is all about, right? Free markets, tiny government, the whole look out for number one and it'll all work out thing. Ask anyone where that idea comes from, and bam! You hear the same name, Adam Smith, Mr. Powdered Wig himself, the OG of economics, the poster child for hands off everything. But here's the kicker, the Adam Smith they're talking about, it's not the real Adam Smith. Actually, the folks who shout his name the loudest are often the ones he warned us about. Welcome to The Financial Historian, where we look at how money, power, and history really mix. You know, when things get messy. Before we go any further, let's be real. Most people don't actually know what Adam Smith believed, and it's not really their fault. For over a century, we've built this whole story around his name, a story that's repeated so much it feels true. The story goes something like this. Government? Keep it out of the economy. Markets? Let them run wild competition. That'll magically make everyone rich. Later on, some economists called it laissez-faire. Basically, leave it alone. The story says that Adam Smith cooked up this whole idea, that he thought business should never be touched, that he trusted greed more than government, that if companies can do whatever, things will get better for everyone. Sounds pretty good, right? Simple, clean, too good to be true, and it is. Adam Smith never said any of that, not once. If he saw the free markets of today, he'd probably be like, who messed with my book? And why did they cut out all the warnings? So, let's get back to the real Adam Smith. Forget the slogan, let's talk about the guy. Smith was born up in Scotland in 1723. Tough place, not a lot of chances. If you weren't born rich, you probably wouldn't be. And Britain back then? Not exactly a free market paradise. It was a controlled empire. Royal groups called monopolies controlled trade. Guilds set prices. Cartels ran most industries. Global business was controlled by mega-corporations like the East India Company. This company had its own army, its own territory, and was super powerful with influence that extended to governments. That's the world Smith saw, a world where money and power were all tangled up, where markets weren't free, they were shaped, pushed around, and usually rigged by people trying to make a profit. If anything, Smith spent most of his life warning everyone that if business people get too much power, they'll use that power to break the rules. He even said, people in the same business don't get together unless they're plotting against everyone else. Basically, when business people get together, regular people get ripped off. Doesn't sound like a big fan of the free market, does it? And here's another thing everyone forgets. Adam Smith wasn't an economist. He didn't even call himself that. He studied moral philosophy. Before writing The Wealth of Nations, he wrote The Theory of Moral Sentiments. It was about empathy, fairness, and why we worry about how other people get treated. And if you actually read it, you realize one thing pretty fast. Smith didn't think greed kept society together. He thought morality did. Which brings us to the most confusing idea in economics ever, the invisible hand. Everyone knows the words. Nobody knows what it means. Smith only used the phrase 3 times in everything he wrote. 3 times. And not once did he say it was this magic rule for markets. Not once did he say getting rid of rules would fix everything. Not once did he say greed would magically make everyone get along. Basically, the invisible hand wasn't that big of a deal to him. It was the exception, not the rule. The first time he used it, he wasn't even talking about money. He was talking about superstition, the human tendency to blame unexplainable chaos on invisible magical forces. The second time, in The Wealth of Nations, he talked about a business owner who puts his money in his community, not because he's nice or loves his country, but because he's scared of shipping money out of the country. Fear, not smarts, makes things better for everyone. That's it. One example, not a law of nature. And the third time, in The Theory of Moral Sentiments, Smith talked about rich landowners who hoard resources but end up sharing because they can't possibly use it all themselves. A guy can own thousands of acres, but he can't eat more than one dinner. That, according to Smith, was the invisible hand. Not being nice, not justice, just simple math. Hardly a celebration of rich people. But over time, that little idea became this huge thing. Economists, politicians, and corporations turned it into proof that rules were dumb. Government was evil, and markets should never be questioned. That didn't just happen. As huge companies rose, railroads, oil, finance, they needed people to trust them. Later, during the Cold War, capitalism needed a simple story to beat communism. So, Adam Smith was made simple, safe, and easy to sell. All the warnings got cut out, all the details removed, all the morality ignored. But what Smith feared the most is exactly what we have today. Companies are so powerful, they control the laws. Monopolies squash competition. Banks are too big to fail. These aren't free markets. They're cartels with better marketing. Smith didn't think markets could fix themselves. He thought power had to be controlled, rules had to be followed, and people had to demand fairness. The invisible hand was never going to save us. Smith thought we had to do that ourselves. History might not repeat itself, but if you don't get it, it'll still mess you up. If you learned something new, subscribe. History is full of answers. I'll show you where to find them.